Traveling has been one of the most common metaphors for life. Our path through life, our road, is something that we can imagine for ourselves as being an extraordinary, adventurous, beautiful, maybe painful and difficult and hard experience that sums up everything we live. And everything that happens, every decision, every relationship can still be represented by a road, a trip we take from one point to another. And if we're lucky or working hard enough, if opportunity arises, that trip is an ascending one, is an experience where the place we reach at the end of the road is somehow more beautiful, more interesting, more welcoming than the point where we started. In this metaphor, forgiveness has its own place. The process of forgiveness can be a very long trip. The road from the moment where we feel ourselves trapped in our hurt and our pain, from that point where we feel extremely vulnerable and powerless, a victim of everything that happened, to the point where we can look back and say, everything is forgiven, I've learned from this, I've grown, and I've become a better person, can be sometimes a very long road. So, what are the stops? What are the phases? The main areas that we have to reach in order to make the trip complete? As we said before, first things come first, and first there's a need. That's where the road starts. But acknowledging that we desperately need to forgive is obviously not enough. So the next stop is that place where we can open ourselves and admit to ourselves that we've been hurt, that whatever happened to us transformed us, had a great impact, that we were not able to stop that pain. And sometimes there are things to acknowledge where it comes to our responsibility. Because sometimes we've placed ourselves into a situation that hurt us. Sometimes we went back to a person that already had hurt us, and we go through the process again. There are many situations where we can acknowledge that we have or we share some of the responsibility for our pain. And when we are able to separate between the two, the process of forgiveness becomes more complex, but also clearer. Of course, there are situations that we could not have prevented or helped in any way, where we were innocent victims and there's nothing to admit or to feel responsible for. And that's all right. But after we've been able to acknowledge everything that happened, and most importantly, to recognize what we are feeling, when we try to express those emotions and tell that story, when we put everything into words, that's a very important step forward. Because whatever we can name, we can control better. When we give a name to an emotion, it becomes clearer, it becomes easier to understand, it becomes easier to connect to another emotion or to another thought. It becomes clearer to others. It's one thing to feel so frustrated, to feel so tormented, to feel so bad inside. And it's another thing to be able to say to somebody, or even to yourself, what I'm feeling now is pain. What I'm feeling is rejection. What I'm feeling is frustration. Or maybe it's despair. Whatever it is that you're feeling, when you are able to name it, when you are able to verbalize it, you are one step ahead from leaving the past behind and going further into a positive future. After being able to express our pain and our hurt and all the other emotions that come with the one thing that we need to forgive, and by the way, forgiving is taking it one step at a time. Trying to forgive everything at the same time is not a wise choice, because it's too complex and the feelings are too mixed, and sometimes we react towards one person while actually projecting our emotions and our experiences towards somebody else from the past. So when we take it one step at a time, when we reach the point where we can express emotions and say what we think and what we feel about everything that happened, then we can begin to understand. And understanding is a life-altering process, because it comes with the need to express more empathy, because it makes us get away from our point of view and try to see everything that happened from another point of view. Understanding means that you look at your partner, your life partner, who said something that hurt you, and you understand his or her pain and hurt. And you understand that inside that person, the person that you love and that you've already shared so much with, is a child who's been hurt probably, who maybe is still hurting and reacting towards you with all that history. And when you see that, it is so much easier to understand where you're coming from and where they are coming from, and how all these stories play a role into the one thing that hurt, that broke, that is still hurting maybe. So this step to forgiving is an effort to make. It's not an effort to excuse or to justify the reasons, the actions of somebody else. We usually do that when we try to diminish something wrong that we've done to another person. And by trying to justify, we search for the easiest to accept explanations. But that's not real understanding. That's only a little bit of it. And sometimes we do that even if we are the victim of the situation and the hurt. We sometimes search for justifications, for explanations that will make the other person seem better or less guilty or less hurtful to us. But in doing so, we usually repress emotions, because deep down we know that the explanations we are forging are not complete or even not real. And when we suppress emotions for a while, things seem to get better. And yet, the moment another conflict, another situation that has potential harm comes into our lives, we reactivate everything. And you know the thing about repressed emotions? They are similar to placing a lid on a boiling pot. At some point, they are prone to burst. So, real understanding, genuine, true, life-altering understanding of ourselves and the others is a process that takes time. On the road to forgiveness, it's not even a place, but rather a piece, a long piece of the road. Sometimes it takes a lot of time to go from justifying ourselves and our anger and our resentment to understanding everything that happened from multiple points of view. Understanding the educational factors, understanding the history of the person, understanding the social factors that play into what happened, understanding that the parent who hurt you somehow has been the result of his or her own time and own education and own family that was even harder to accept and to live than the things that you're living now. That takes time, that takes effort, that takes patience. And patience is something that we need to cultivate as an exercise. It's not only a virtue, it's not only a result of our own personalities, but it's also a practiced ability. It comes with the consciousness that some things are setting in place, that windows to other people are opening slowly, and that forgiving as a whole and understanding as a piece of it is something that we need to learn. It's a lifelong learning process, and the more we understand, the better we'll be able to react and to change. But that's another story, another piece of the road to be taken, and we'll talk about that next time.